Welcome back. Chorus grows for a single leader in the AIADMK. The poster war has now really taken an immense proportion. We'll bring you those pictures with deep fissures coming out in the open. Yet again, AIADMK leader O Panneerselvam and E Palaniswami held separate discussions with their supporters a day after the demand to revert to singular leadership resonated at a key party meet. Meetings were held on behalf of both sides, leaving the cadre in a state of a fix. While supporters of OPS hailed him as the late party leader Jayalalitha's political heir and stuck posters supporting him for that position, EPS loyalists not to be left behind claim that he is the choice of 1.5 crore AIADMK cadre and unilateral leadership can be the only solution. ADMK senior leader Ponnaiyan, meanwhile, said that there is no rift within the party and all that is going on is very much a part of the process. Let's listen in.
There is no tussle between EPS and OPS in regard to single leadership. There is no tussle at all. Desire of a few people that there should be single leadership, yes, in the case of any other political party. So there is no controversy between EPS and OPS in regard to that subject. If you are a member of our party, you also can aspire to become a single leader of All India ADMK. Single leadership is not either in favor of EPS or in favor of OPS. It is not either against EPS, either against OPS. So that is a general issue. You understand? So you put a full stop to that issue.
Let me go across to my colleague Dharani, who will give us an idea of what exactly has happened on ground. Dharani, over to you. Give us specifically all the details on what turf war are we talking about. Is it only over these posters that this controversy has erupted, or there is more to it?
Well, soon after Jayalalitha's death, the post of General Secretary was removed from AIADMK and two different positions, coordinator and the joint coordinator were created. So right now, OPS is the coordinator and the EPS is the joint coordinator of AIADMK. So a couple of days before, AIADMK party had its district secretaries meeting. So during that meeting, it was learned that a discussion about single leadership took place. So even former Minister Jay Kumar, he came out of the meeting and he held a press conference and openly told that discussions about single leadership has begun at this point in time, and the discussions took place in that meeting also. So soon after that, EPS and OPS, they started holding meetings with senior party leaders respectively, separately at their residences. So after the district secretaries meeting 2 days before, EPS and OPS never held a meeting together. In fact, they are holding meeting with senior party leaders separately at their residences, respectively. So this is something that we need to note. And sources inside the party are telling that most of the district secretaries, around 70 district secretaries, are actually backing EPS for the position of single leader rather than OPS. So if at all if ADMK is heading towards single leadership, sources are suggesting that EPS is having the upper hand over OPS.
Right. Thanks for joining us, Dharani, with the latest inputs and for giving us a clear perspective on the current scheme of things. So what we want to know here is, will this turf war prove to be a nemesis for the party? Who will benefit from this tussle? Will the Sasikala section benefit in any way? After Jaya Hood, so that question is not settled yet. And that is what we want to discuss here with the panelists joining us here this evening. C. Rajashekharan, lawyer and political analyst, and Dr. Sumant C. Raman, political analyst, also joining us here this evening. Very good evening to you both. Thank you for joining us here on Mirror Now. I want to begin by asking you, Dr. Sumant C. Raman, who will win this turf war? It's clearly a split, wide open, as you heard my colleague also say, that these two positions, which meant that the party was operating with dual power centers. And that clearly is not something that is sustainable, as we can see.
Yeah, it was never meant to be sustainable. It was only a stopgap arrangement which was worked out because the party was in power until last April. Now it was clear that they will have to move towards a single leadership, and there is no doubt at all that Mr. Edapadi Palaniswami, EPS as he is called, is going to be the sole leader of the party. Mr. OPS's support has shrunk beyond measure, and there is no question at all. I think Mr. EPS would like to have a graceful kind of arrangement where Mr. OPS himself proposes Mr. EPS's name as leader of the party and as the general secretary of the party, and that the transition can happen soon. I think that would be the objective, because should Mr. OPS want to rock the boat, hardly anybody is willing to join him in such a tussle, unlike the situation at one point of time where the public had a lot of sympathy for Mr. OPS when he rebelled against Shashikala soon after the demise of Ms. Jayalalithaa. Now there is virtually no sympathy at all for Mr. OPS because of his shenanigans subsequently. And therefore, it is a very clear case that Mr. EPS has demonstrated administrative ability in holding the government together for 4 years. And he has emerged as a leader in his own right. And it's a matter of time before the control of the party comes solely to Mr. EPS.
Right. So, in this entire controversy now, the fact of the matter is both sides are claiming to have the larger clout. Both sides are in this clear one-upmanship.
It's a no contest. It's a no contest. This is not a contest of equals at all.
Okay, you're saying there is no contest.
It's more like 95%, 5%, 5%, or 90%, 10% max.
Is that something you agree with, Mr. C. Rajashekharan?
No, I totally disagree with Sumant Raman for this simple reason. See, Edappadi Palaniswami had the blessings of BJP. That is the only reason he was allowed to loot and scoot for the last 4.5 years till last April, as he rightly pointed out. Money cannot make everything in life. Politics is a different ballgame. Politics has so many emotions, connections, and ground support, the cadre support, and the party's hierarchy. Everything matters. What Edappadi thinks, he can purchase everybody during the General Council meeting and emerge as a leader, which is not going to happen, definitely not going to happen. Because I'll tell you, there are cases pending before the honorable courts of this country. Two-leaf symbol case is pending before the Election Commission, and the General Secretary post which Ms. Sasikala Nadarajan has appealed is pending before the High Court. All this put in a nutshell. OPS is the coordinator, chief coordinator of the party. My only point is, if OPS wants to create an issue in this whole episode, he has to just write a letter or go before the Election Commission of India and say, see, this is the problem happening in the party. Please freeze the symbol. ADMK survives only with the symbol as on date. If somebody has to unite the party, it can only be with the support of Mrs. Sasikala Nadarajan. Otherwise, because she comes from the Mukkulathur majority community,
you are batting for
and OPS also
Sasikala
belongs to that community,
at this
and
point,
all
Mr.
other
Rajashekharan. So it's not actually two, it's actually three leaders, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Sumant Raman, vying for Jaya's legacy. Am I right?
No, I'll tell you, please allow me.
The fight for legacy is actually now between three individuals, if I am to believe what Mr. Rajashekharan is saying.
No, I mean, Shashikala is not being.
No, I'll tell you, please allow me.
One by one.
See,
Okay,
all these
people
were handpicked by Shashikala and Jayalalithaa. No, let me finish. Yes, let me finish. See, all this OPS, EPS, all these people were nobody till Jayalalithaa was alive. It was Sasikala Nadarajan who was the person who had handpicked all these people and brought them before Jayalalithaa, and they were made ministers, MLAs, etc., etc. That was the system which was happening for last 3 decades in ADMK. Everybody knows this. Suddenly, after the demise of Jay Lalita, Sasikala had to face a huge problem due to the case before the Honorable Supreme Court. She got convicted in the disproportionate asserts case, and she was in the Parpana Agrahara prison for 4 years. During that tenure, she had ensured Edappadi would become the right choice. She nominated him. She had full trust on Edappadi Palanichami. He backstabbed Shashikala and he took over the reins of the government and the party as well.
That is one
And
side of the
OPS
narrative, Mr. Rajashekaran. I understand that is your view and we welcome all views. But let's also understand the other side. So, Mr. Suman C. Raman, your views on this. The fact is that ultimately,
this is what happened.
Ultimately, who is it going to hurt the most?
This is what has happened.
Is it not true that this particular rift within the party has cost the party its political prospects, owing to which it lost the last election? It has conceded ground to DMK. So, is this not going down a slippery slope further, far from consolidating? It's disintegrating further.
Yeah, right now there is a problem. I don't think the party's defeat was because of this rift, because the party had been in power for 10 years. And so, in Tamil Nadu, that is a rarity, which usually Tamil Nadu votes out an incumbent government every 5 years. So, actually, they had been in power from 2011 to 2021. Okay. So therefore, people wanted a change, and therefore they voted against them. But I don't think it was a rift. But right now, yes, you're right. There is a risk of the party splitting. But you see, the overwhelming majority is with Mr. EPS. And yes, it is a fact that Shashikala was the one who asked EPS to be in charge when she went to prison. But the point is, politics is dynamic. Today, Ms. Shashikala does not have support from the public of this country. She does not have support even within the party on a significant scale. And therefore, Mr. EPS, if you look at the AIADMK MLAs, out of the 66 MLAs who won, almost 50 plus are people who have won from the Kongu belt, which is basically the area in and around Coimbatore, which is EPS's territory, Salem, Erode, Tirupur, Coimbatore, Pollachi belt. So I think that the fact that he commands the majority support of the majority of the MLAs, the majority of district secretaries.
What will happen 1 week from now, Dr. Suman? Very quickly, last word to you and Mr. Rajashekaran as well. Quick 10 seconds. What's going to happen in the elections
I need to rebut.
Just two sentences each. Please, Mr. Suman first and then Rajashekaran.
1 second. My closing comments on this. In all likelihood, Mr. OPS is likely to propose the name of EPS to be elected as the General Secretary of the party. And that sort of brings the curtains down on this tussle. There may be some kind of arrangement to give Mr. OPS's son, Mr. Ravindranath, who is now a member of Parliament.
That seems to be a consensus idea, which Dr. Raman is saying. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Rajashekaran.
See, what Sumantraman wishes will not happen. That is my hunch. Because if EPS is given the party, it will become a caste outfit of Kongu Gounders. It will become not an AIADMK. It will become Kongu Gounder caste outfit. A fringe party like any other party, which OPS would not agree, because OPS come from the majority community, which is the Mukkulathur community, Devars. And they will not allow him to even survive in the state or in his own district. So there is a lot of risk for OPS if he proposes.
So you do not believe that there is a consensus
in the ADMK?
There can be a consensus around EPS. Clearly, there is a divide in opinion, and it's always good to have a discussion like this. Thank you so much, Dr. Suman C. Raman and Mr. C. Rajashekaran, for joining us.